This is the class about the gene pool of medicinal plants in Central Asia, and I have enlisted the example of Uzbekistan about the gene pool of medicinal plants in Central Asia, Uzbekistan, prospects and problems. So in this class, in this lecture, I will give you about the gene pool of medicinal plants and their prospects and problems. First to define the gene pool. Gene pool refer to the total set of genetic information alleles found in particular population of the organism. So it is the simplest definition of a gene pool. Gene pools are all combination of the genes, alleles found in reproducing population of the plants. It includes all different versions of the genes, variation in the DNA sequences. So the combination of all genes and the changes or the variation in the DNA sequences is collectively known as the gene pool of medicinal plants. Gene pool can be thought of as the genetic reservoir from which a new generations of individuals are produced through process such as reproduction and genetic recombination. So gene pool is a basically storage, is a reservoir where the new generation can be produced. New generation of the individuals of the population of a particular species can be produced by the process of reproduction and genetic recombination. Here you see, for example, there is a gene pool of a single medicinal plant species with a different genes combination. So these genes combination is the reservoir of a species where the different individuals can be reproduced through genetic recombination and reproductions. Here you see what is the importance of the gene pool. Gene pool is a very important because it determines the genetic variation within the population. We can easily study, we can easily check the variation within the population based on the gene pool. Affect the population ability to adapt to the changing environmental condition. So the gene pools are also important for the individuals of the population to adopt a specific habitat, environment or a soil depending upon the genes. It can increase the population changes, survival in the face of disease, climate change and other challenges. Gene pools are also important. They play important roles for the individuals of population to address the disease, combat the climate change, and to combat the other challenges in the ecosystem and the environment. Understanding the evolution of the species over the time can provide the insight into the genetic variation changes that have been occurred within population. So it is also important that they play important roles to study the evolution of the species over the time, to provide different informations about the changes within the individuals, within the population, within the species that is occurs in the population. Here you see the gene pool of medicinal plants in Central Asia. So the Central Asia is one of the important regions that includes Russian states, that includes Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and some parts of other areas. So this area is also important with respect to the medicinal plant diversity. For example, Uzbekistan is known for its rich biodiversity of the medicinal plant that include variety of the medicinal plant, and this country hosted about 6,000 medicinal plant species which are used for centuries in traditional medicine. So here you see how this area is rich. Only small country, that is Uzbekistan, contains 6,000 medicinal plant species. So Kyrgyzstan have a lot of medicinal plants, Russian states, Siberia, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, all these areas contain a lot of medicinal plant species. I just gave you the example of Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is a Central Asian country with a rich history of the medicinal plant use. So the people of the Uzbekistan, the communities of the Uzbekistan, especially the rural communities, the countryside people, they have the long history of the medicinal plant utilization by the traditional system of the medicine. The country has a long tradition of using medicinal plants for the treatment of various ailments. Many of these plants are still used today. So in the modern era of this time, even the communities of Uzbekistan, they use medicinal plants for traditional purposes to combat different diseases. Similarly, in South Asia, in Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they have a rich cultural heritage for the utilization of the medicinal plant. In other parts of the Asia, for example, China, Russia, Turkey, they have their own system of the traditional medicinal plants. So all these countries, all these regions have a genetic pool for the medicinal plant. Uzbekistan is the home of variety of medicinal plants, including some of them are endemic to this region, and these plants have used for centuries to treat various ailments, and they continue to be an important part of their traditional system of the medicine. So all these countries, uh, including Central Asia, South Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, they have their rich cultural heritage for the utilization of the medicinal plants, and they are used for a number of the diseases, and all these regions have their own certain species endemic to their country. So for example, in Pakistan, Barbaris balochistan is native to Balochistan. Similarly, Ergyrolobium is native to Pakistan. So there are a lot of medicinal plants that are native to India, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and other part of the Central Asia. Some of the common medicinal plant species in Uzbekistan that are also found in other part of the Asia, that includes licorice, that is Glycyrrhiza glabra. This is one of the important medicinal plant where the roots are used for throat infection, cough, bronchitis, and mouth ulcer. Ephedra species, for example, Ephedra giardiana, that is also common species of Central Asia, which have a strong antiviral activities, and they are commonly used as ephedrine in number of the medicinal drugs. For example, cough syrup, asthma syrup, bronchitis syrups. Junipers have also a rich diversity in the Central Asia. Junipers that are also a number of medicinal application. Pomegranate, that is Punica granatum, Rosa species. Saffron, that is Crocus typha, St. John wort, that is Hypericum perforatum, turmeric, that is Curcuma longa, wormwood, that is Artemisia species, Artemisia annua, Artemisia absinthium, Artemisia maritima, yarrow plant, that is Achillea mellifolium, Achillea centolina. All these medicinal herbs are very common in Central Asia, and they have a rich traditional medicinal uses for a number of the ailments in this part of the world. Here you see example of, just I quote the example of licorice, that is Glycyrrhiza glabra, where the roots are useful for the throat infection, bronchitis, cough, and number of the other purposes. Here the root tea, that is a herbal tea prepared by the decoction of the root tea, is recommended during the cough, during the allergic season. So this is another important medicinal plant. They have a strong antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal activities. The gene pool of these and other medicinal plants in Central Asia and Uzbekistan is valuable for conservation for future research. It is important to develop seed banks, gene bank, cryopreservation centers in different parts of the region, in different parts of the countries, to protect, to conserve the gene pool for generation of the new individuals for conservation point of view. So the gene banks, seed banks, cryoconservation centers play an important role for ex situ conservation of the medicinal plants. It is the need of the time to conserve endangered, critically endangered, and rare species of medicinal plant in Central Asia. The government of Uzbekistan and other parts of Central Asia has taken certain steps to preserve the country biodiversity and has established the protected areas either in the form of botanical garden, either in the form of farmland, either in the form of universities. So the botanical garden are the gardens are the areas where there is a live collection, play important role for gene seed conservation, and they play important role for conservation of endangered and critically endangered species. So it is suggested that all the botany department, plant sciences department, agriculture sciences department may develop their botanical gardens to conserve the endangered and critically endangered species by protecting, by conserving the gene pools or the gene banks. Additionally, there are ongoing efforts to study the medicinal plants in Central Asia and the plant species to develop a new treatments based on traditional knowledge. So there is a great development in the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical industries and the cosmeceutical industry. Now the world is moving from traditional Chinese medicines towards the modern equipments, modern developments like natural products, pharmaceutical industries, cosmeceutical industries, and the natural products. Here I am enlisted certain medicinal plants that are commonly cultivated in Central Asia and in Uzbekistan and around the world. And these are the basically strategies that are adopted by the botany department, by the agricultural sciences, by the student, by the scientists to conserve these cultivated medicinal plants. For example, Ilium strivum, this is a common kitchen plant that is commonly used, aloe vera, capsicum annuum, curcuma longa, Glycyrrhiza glabra, Metricaria chamomila, Menthus spicata, Ocimum basilicum, Papaver somniferum, Rosa canina, Rose marinus, Salix alba. So these are very common medicinal plants. We daily use these medicinal plants in the form of traditional food, in the form of traditional medicine, and now there is a great interest of these medicinal plant cultivation for commercialization, for trade. So these medicinal plant can be cultivated, can be conserved by using agro techniques or agricultural techniques. Here I have enlisted the example of Rose marinus officinale, one of the important medicinal plant, that is the medium shrub that belong to family Lamiaceae or Labiatae, which have a strong aromatic compounds in aerial parts of the plant. This is one of the important. Rose marinus herbal tea is a common herbal tea in Central Asia, in Europe, and in Asia. This rosemary tea is useful to reduce the blood pressure. It's useful for digestive complaint. It's useful for indigestion. It's used for vomiting, and it is also one of the important strong aromatic plant that is commonly used for medicinal purpose. So by cultivating Rose marinus, actually you are conserving the gene pool of this species. Gene pools of medicinal plant in Central Asia and Uzbekistan prospects. Rich biodiversity of the area, they provide basis for the wealth of the medicinal plant to be explored, to be conserved with respect to their genetic diversity. Here you see a beautiful valley, the mountainous regions. There's a Chatkal mountain forest that is one of the important hotspot regions in Uzbekistan. Is a natural reserve by the government of Uzbekistan, is one of the important resource-based area for medicinal plant. So this is a natural conservation of medicinal plant in their natural original habitat is called as in situ conservation, while the medicinal plant conservation at botanical garden or cultivated field is called as ex situ conservation, while the conservation of these medicinal plants by involving the local communities in Central Asia and Uzbekistan and mountain part in their natural habitat is called as in situ conservation. Traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge has a long history of the medicinal plant, that is the knowledge that is transmitted from generation to generation. From centuries, people are using medicinal plant which have a rich indigenous knowledge. So it is the need of the time to document this scientific knowledge on the basis of modern objectives. To document this traditional knowledge for the use of medicinal plant is called as ethnopharmacology. That is called as ethnomedicine. So this ethnopharmacology is a basic move toward the drug discovery development. After the documentation of indigenous knowledge, this knowledge is used by the biologists, is used by the plant scientists in the laboratory to study the active ingredient of the medicinal plant and the biological screening, the clinical trials, and then move toward the natural drug discovery development.